Just when you thought it was safe to watch TV again, we're back. And we've got a fresh, hot batch of death to sink your teeth into. Like the boy band that wouldn't go away. You suck! Until the lead singer flew away. Or the bachelorette who wound up tarted and feathered. Then there's the pool hopper named Dennis, who became an easy slider. And a voyeuristic building manager who wound up taking a bath. How about the guy who hated the Middle Ages so much he split? And finally, a bunch of ex-soldiers who thought they were just firing blanks. It's useless to resist. There is no escape. It's a brand new episode of 1,000 Ways to Die.
Warning. The stories portrayed in this show are based on real deaths and are extremely graphic. Names have been changed to protect the identities of the deceased. Do not attempt to try any of the actions depicted. You will die.
Death is everywhere. Most of us try to avoid it. Others can't get out of its way. Every day we fight a new war against germs, toxins, injury, illness, and catastrophe. There's a lot of ways to wind up dead. The fact that we survive it all is a miracle. Because every day we live, we face 1,000 ways to die.
Dave was a building manager who kept an eye on things. The problem was, he kept too close an eye. Using a high-tech, flexible snake camera, Dave spied on all the pretty girls in his building.
Hello.
He would start out with Yoga Girl in 6B.
Nice and loose and limber.
There are definitely no limits at being a voyeur now. It used to be just peeping through a window, but now with technology, there's binoculars, telescopes. You can peep from across the street. I mean, you can't go to a motel in the middle of nowhere and not find that there's a camera in your hotel watching you.
That is nice.
On the other side of his apartment, he would spy on Karaoke Girl in 6D.
Oh, yeah.
Trudy was a sizzling little Pop-Tart.
Ooh.
He would top it off with Bathtub Babe in 7C. Danielle was his favorite. She offered the best views.
Hallelujah!
Over time, Dave had drilled several holes in her bathroom floor to maximize his peeping angles.
Oh, it's bath time. Get yourself nice and clean for me.
Drilling holes in the ceiling allowed water from the bathroom to get into the wood structure. Water creates rotting because it makes the wood susceptible to the growth of fungi. The fungi eats away at the wood's cellulose, which is the building block in the wood, which gives it its strength. Eventually, the weight of the bathtub and the weight of the girl made the structure fail.
Dave was a creep who liked to peep.
Oh, yeah.
He thought he was clever.
Oh, it's bath time.
Until his fat head was crushed and his brains went splatter and his lights went out. Forever.
Forget this.
For Trudy and Dennis, summertime meant one thing. Pool hopping. With not a homeowner in sight, this place was perfect.
Oh, yes.
Can't wait.
Except some ongoing construction had turned the backyard into a power tool house of horrors. They managed to escape electrocution from the submerged power cord.
Cheers.
Soon after, the combination of cold beer and hot sun had Dennis pushing his tool-time luck.
Stop being such an idiot! Woo!
Does the right to bear arms include a nail gun?
Put it down!
Let's hope not.
Oh.
Dennis's downfall picks up speed with a big sheet of plastic.
Okay!
The slippery slide turned into slip and die. Let's find out why. Dennis failed to notice the long nail in the middle of the plywood.
The nail would rip into his abdomen. This causes what they call an abdominal evisceration. The entrails would be pulled out, 20 feet of small intestine, 5 feet of large intestine. This would lead to massive loss of blood, which would send him into hypovolemic shock and lead to death.
As the sun sets on another unfortunate death, let's offer a heartfelt goodbye to our latest dumbass. Happy entrails, Dennis. Coming up, a new viral video called 3 Guys, 1 Gun. And
let me help you.
A crooked gigolo gets a granny gummer. From 1955 to 1975, war was a way of life for Vietnam. When the shooting stopped, many who fought were still pumped from having cheated death. Like these ex-Viet Cong soldiers. 10 years later, they spend their time getting wasted, arguing about what's the best aphrodisiac, and playing Russian roulette.
Để trên đầu của tao coi coi cái nào. Em đi. Dạ có mẹ với tôi nhễ đâu, nhễ cái tâm nhạc đó hoài à. Tao không có sợ đâu. Nhạc của mày chứ con chó nó không có muốn nghe cái nhạc của mày. Sợ hả? Không có sợ, không có sợ.
These once-upon-a-time warriors were feeling invincible. But sometimes your number comes up in unexpected ways. For these 3, that number was 35,000. 35,000 is the number of unexploded landmines still planted throughout the Vietnam countryside. Unbeknownst to them, a war leftover was lying directly below their drinking hut. It took their foot-stomping celebration to finally set it off.
It's more than likely that a landmine will still be effective after being in the ground for decades. When a human being steps on a landmine, it sends an electrical signal to an igniter, and it explodes.
For some soldiers, the war is never over. For these guys, they should have quit while they were a head, and an arm, and a leg. You get the picture. The elderly often have to rely upon the kindness of strangers. People like Raul.
Let me help you, let me help you.
A male nurse who makes house calls can be a godsend.
You do remind me of Bette Davis.
Oh, really? That's so sweet.
But Raul's not just a nurse. He's a parasite, and he's here to suck Gertie dry. Of her bank account, her jewelry, and whatever else he can get his slimy hands on. Gertie was an easy target for his sleazeball charm.
Oh, it's so romantic, isn't it?
Raul was ready to bust a move. But first, Gertie had to get comfortable.
Oops.
Sticking his tongue down a rotten pie hole had him spitting up in his mouth.
Okay, well, listen, I'll be right back.
The gum job proved to be more than he could stomach. Raul grabbed anything that might give him relief. What Raul took for mints were actually denture whitening tablets.
Denture tablets contain sodium borate and potassium monopersulfite, both of which are very strong oxidizing agents.
Raul gulped down a glass of water that turned out to be more dissolved denture cleaner.
The oxidizing agents that are so good at removing stains and breaking up stains actually do that to your tissue. It breaks up the membranes in your cells.
The toxic chemicals not only tore up Raul's digestive system, they prevented his red blood cells from carrying oxygen. In 6 minutes, his major organs were shutting down. At minute 10, his oxygen-starved heart stopped beating.
Let me help you.
Raul was a fake who lied to get what he wanted. In the end, you could say he died of truth decay. Up next, a bachelorette gets wasted, and the Spanish Inquisition gets medieval on everyone. Three cute girls plus stretch limo equals bachelorette party. Denise, the bride-to-be, was a young Republican tea-partying teetotaler.
Oh my God, you guys. You have to wear it.
A few sips of champagne was as crazy as she planned on getting tonight. Until her best friend pulled a surprise out of her purse.
Have you ever heard of absinthe? What?
Absinthe, the bad boy of the booze world, had a bad rep as a brain-destroying hallucinogen. But it wasn't true.
I've heard about this stuff, you guys.
Perhaps the biggest urban legend surrounding absinthe is that it delivers effects akin to psychedelic drugs and hallucinations. These are largely exaggerated and are rooted in the fact that there were a small number of absinthes in the 19th century that were adulterated with poisonous chemicals.
Absinthe goes by another name, the Green Devil, and Denise was about to meet him face to face. The normally quiet tea partier had turned into a full-on tea bagger. With her blood running green, Denise was flying high. Until a low-flying pigeon brought the party and Denise to an abrupt end.
When there is that kind of blunt force that comes into a neck region, it can snap your neck back and break your neck and cause spinal cord damage, which causes you to stop breathing. So you basically collapse and die.
Oh my God, you guys. You have to wear it.
If we could offer some post-mortem advice to Denise, it would be this. Next time someone offers you absinthe, keep your mouth shut. Okay, class, listen up. Today's subject, the Spanish Inquisition. In 1478, the church and government got together and put the screws to anyone they felt like. If someone was accused of heresy or being a heathen, they could kiss their dirty medieval butts goodbye.
The Spanish Inquisition was a religious court which was authorized by the Catholic Church to torture and execute any non-believers or heretics.
Father Gomez played an important role. He designed torture devices. But, as he was about to find out...
Hola, Father Sanchez.
Buenos dias, Father Gomez.
When you live by the Inquisition...
You've been denounced as a heretic.
You die by it.
No, not me, no!
Bad luck for Gomez, and bad timing. He had just invented something he called... the Spanish donkey. Guess who was about to become its first victim?
The Spanish donkey was basically a vertical piece of wood that had a pointed top. The victim would straddle it like a saddle, and the weight of his body, along with cannonballs tied to his ankles, would pull the body down, sever the groin, crush the pelvis, and eventually tear the victim in half.
The Inquisition was your basic lose-lose proposition. If you admitted guilt, you would die. If you denied your guilt, you would die.
In this gentleman's situation, his internal organs would have been macerated by the device and the force of his body on it, and the vessels of the pelvis would be torn. He would die from massive internal bleeding. Once you reach about 400 pounds, you're going to rip that pelvis right in half.
Was Father Gomez actually guilty of anything? The court ruling was a split decision. Can't stand boy bands?
You suck!
Stick around. You'll like how this song ends.
Get it!
There's only one thing more annoying than a boy band, and we found it. An over-the-hill boy band filled with men who refuse to recognize they're no longer boys. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Forever.
Being a boy band, has a lot of its challenges. The thing that I loved the most, I think, about it was the camaraderie. You had 4 brothers there with you all the time to share memories, to goof off, to play pranks on each other. I think it's a blessing to be better looking than everyone else in the world.
They were a one-hit wonder in the early 90s. But their glory day had come and gone. Now they're reduced to playing dinner clubs and dive bars to less than enthusiastic audiences.
You suck!
Even in their prime, frontman Tim was a raving egomaniac.
I'm the lead singer. That's how it is.
He refused to accept that his star had faded.
Let's go.
Tonight, Tim was determined to pull out all the stops. It was working. The 90s weren't so far away after all. Tim had finally lost it. When he looked out upon the pathetically small audience, he saw an arena filled with 100,000 screaming Tim worshippers. They were calling out to him. They wanted to be close to his burning flame of greatness. How could he let them down? Ouch.
Oh my God! The initial impact would be to the rear aspect of the vertebra, which would focus all the force onto the vertebra itself, causing it to fracture. A likely fracture would be the C3 vertebra. And the force and momentum of his body would cause his spinal cord to push into those fractured pieces, and the resultant fragments of bone would tear through his spinal cord, which would cause spinal cord damage and paralysis of not only his arms and legs, but also of his lungs.
While Tim lay there paralyzed, his lungs stopped breathing, his heart stopped beating, and his brain just stopped. In other words,
Tim was dead. Forever.
It's original.